Did you ever have a floppy disk, a 5 1/4 inch floppy disk, and you wanted to read it on a modern machine and you had no idea how to do it? In this video, I'm going to show you how to take an old floppy disk made for the Commodore 64 and read it on a modern machine. And it's not easy. It does require some, special equipment and stuff like that not everyone has, but it's possible, it's doable. And if you want to do it, this video will show you how. Now, it's not for everybody because a lot of people want to play Commodore 64 games. They just download a game illegally or whatever. But if you have original media, maybe something you actually had from when you were a kid, or if you're a collector and you want to try to play something on the Commodore, here's how you do it. Now, what you need, first of all, you need the disk, obviously. It's not going to work without the disk. Second of all, you need some kind of disk drive. So here's a 5 1/4 inch floppy drive, an IBM style one. Now you could use like a lot of different brands or whatever. I use this one from TIAC that works pretty well for me. The FD, whatever that number is there. But you can use other ones if you want also. This one seems to work well for me. And most importantly, what you need, since a modern computer doesn't have a floppy drive controller, is you need something to replace the floppy drive controller. I did a video a long time ago about the FC5025, which is something specifically for non-copy protected discs and things like that. But for copy protected discs, which is like almost every single Commodore 64 game, you need something like this. This is a Kryoflux. Now, there are other devices that will do something similar to this, but this one works really well for Commodore 64 and for Commodore 64 copy protection. It was made by people that really are experts in the Commodore 64. It's a little bit expensive, but, again, it does the job. So what do you need? You need the disk, you need the disk drive, you need the Kryoflux, you need a floppy drive cable to connect the Kryoflux to the disk drive, and I'll show you how to do that. You need my glasses, that's not what that was. You'll need a USB cable over here, like with this type of ending that plugs into USB-A, so you can plug that into the other side of the Kryoflux and get it into your PC. And lastly, you will need a power supply that has a Molex connector on it. So this is a Molex connector. It plugs into the back of the floppy drive to power it. So you need to have something that looks like this on one end and has basically a plug into the wall on the other end. And I'll put links in the description where to get that stuff. But this is the main thing, just to tell you quickly, is that like when I was a kid, they always said, don't touch any of these things because like you'll get static electricity, it'll explode, it won't work. I've never had a problem like that, but your mileage may vary, so no warranty expressed or implied by this video. This works for me. If you want to be more cautious and wear like static guard and things like that, you can obviously. But this is how I do it. So without further ado, let me show you actually this thing in action. Okay, so let's put it all together. The first thing we have here, of course, is the floppy drive. Now, you can use any floppy drive you want, like I said before. I'm using the TIAC FD55GFR. And you can see there's two connectors on this thing. This one here is the connector for the floppy drive cable. And this thing here is the connector for the power. It's called a Molex connector. So first thing we need to do is take the floppy drive cable. And the floppy drive cable has two sides to it. This end over here, the one with only one connector, this one goes into the controller, which is the Kryoflux in this case. And then the other end here, which has two connectors, and it's twisted also over here. This connector is meant for a 3.5 inch drive. This one's all we care about. It's made for a 5 1/4 inch drive. And if you look at it carefully, you can see that it's notched. There's a notch right over there. I don't know if you can see it. And the connector itself is also notched right over here. So there's only one way you can put it in, and you just go ahead and connect this here, and that part is done. So you connect the floppy drive cable like that. Then you need to connect the other end of the cable to the Kryoflux, which I have over here. Now, this floppy drive cable has a notch on it. I don't know if you can see that, but there's a notch right here, and the Kryoflux also has a notch. So if your cable has a notch, you're sort of lucky and all is good. If it doesn't have a notch, though, you look at the red strip on the left side of the cable, which is pin 1, and you want to plug that into pin 1 on the Kryoflux, which looking at it from this angle is right here on the left side. So I'm going to go ahead and plug that in just like so. And it's pretty easy, but, make sure you're putting it in straight. And then the other end here of the Kryoflux, this is the USB connection to the computer. You use your USB cable that I showed before, and you plug that into here. And the other end of this USB cable is going to go into my laptop or my computer that I want to use to read the data. So now the Kryoflux is connected. The other thing you got to do is plug in the power. So you need to get your power cord, as I showed before, with the Molex connector. And you just want to plug it into the drive in the same connector. This one also only goes one way because it's sort of notched in the corners, if you can see that. And so is the connector. So I just go ahead and plug it in the only way it goes in. And now everything is connected. Now, of course, the last thing I need to do, not to forget to do that, is to actually take the disc and put the disc in. The disc goes in as so. And you can see it through the top because it's the drive is open up. And then there's a 5.25 inch drive has a little handle that you close to lock the disc in. And you can see if you look at it from the top, that actually makes the mechanism go up and down, which is the piece of the drive that actually reads the data off of the floppy disk. So now that it's all connected, let's see what we got. All right, so here I'm running the command prompt in Windows 11, and I'm in the Kryoflux directory. Now there is a GUI for this, but I prefer the command line tools. They work really well. So for a C64 image, you use this command DTC, and you put in this relatively arcane string here. Now, by the way, I'm not going to tell you how to install the Kryoflux with the drivers and whatnot. It's basically just connect it, like I said, but there are drivers that get installed. There are instructions that come with it that when you buy it, and you'll have it there. But in case you buy it, you can't get it to work, feel free to ping me on my Discord. But to actually dump a disk, you do DTC-DD1, which is high density disk drive that I'm using, -K2, which means skip odd numbered tracks, or maybe it's even numbered tracks. Then you say -F, and you give it a file name. Let's call it test image, yeah. And I0 means a raw image. And then I do the same thing again, repeat the same parameters. But this time I'm going to create a .g64 file, which is a special C64 image you use for emulators. And here you do -I22 that gets it to make that. So let's see what happens when we hit enter. So you hear the disk drive spinning. And it looks like it's finding here CBM DOS OK, track 1, track 2, and it's going to keep going. So a couple things I'll tell you about this while it's going. So far everything is great here. First of all, you don't have to do the raw image part. You could just theoretically do the second part of the command, but it's good to do the raw image if you know what you're doing. So A, you have it for preservation, but also you can do some troubleshooting. So a couple things that might go wrong while this is going. Number one, if the disk starts to make funny noise, like squealing or something, like take it out immediately and like stop, because that means that there's something wrong with the disk. It's going to mess up your disk drive probably, and it's not going to work anyway. That's number one. If you're like or something like that, that's when you abort. Number two, if you get like to a point, and it looks like it's not happening here, which is great, but if you get to a point where there's a problem reading a track or a sector, it'll basically try to retry, and it'll retry a certain number of times and try to see if it can fix the problem. Sometimes it'll fix the problem by retrying. Other times, actually, there's no problem. It's part of the copy protection that makes it look like there's something wrong with the disk. So it'll still do its best, the program, to capture all the information it can capture, and then it'll still create that G64 image, including all the information around, the errors and things like that. And then when you load it into the emulator, into Vice, there's a special version of Vice, the Commodore 64 emulator, that's been modified specifically by the Kryoflux guys to accept these type of copy-protected images. When you load it into that, it will be able to read all that data and try its best to trick the computer rather, to thinking that it's an original floppy disk with all the original imaging and everything. But this is actually a really good one because looks like so far it's just a straight up disk. It may not be copy protected at all. It just looks like regular DOS, and everything looks good. So if that's the case, that's the easiest of the easy. But regardless, you let this thing go, it runs. You see getting to the end here because it says now the tracks are unformatted, so the last couple of tracks typically will be. So in 1 second it'll finish, and then we'll try it out and see if it actually works. So here I am running the Vice emulator, and this is the special version that's been modified by the Kryoflux people, and I'll put the link in the description. I've already used the menus, which you can't see unfortunately, to attach the disk image. Very simple, just file, attach disk image, drive 8, which is the main drive in Commodore, and then you just find the G64 image you created, and then you type, of course, the famous command that everybody knows in Commodore 64, load $, comma 8, 1, will work for most disks. Not every single one, but if not, read the instructions of the manual. And basically, it'll just look for the first program. Star is the first program it finds on 8, which is the first disk drive. 1 means the binary. You don't actually need that in this case, this program. Then you hit run. And then after a little bit of whirring and buzzing and clicking, it should bring up the loading screen. And we'll see if this disk image works. And I know it does work, because it looked like it worked when I imaged it. And yeah, so Here we go. How about a nice game of chess? And there it is. So I'm not going to show you the game. If you want to see the game, I'm doing another video specifically on this game, so you can check that out. But this is how you image a Commodore 64 5¼ inch floppy disk using a Kryoflux. And I hope you found that interesting. If you want to, you can buy your own equipment and do that on your own. But if it's not for you, I understand. It's still, maybe you find it cool. Let me know what you think in the comments. Make sure you like the video if you like it, and make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed. Hit the notification icon. Do lots of retro stuff here. Let me know what you think, and we'll do something like this again real soon. So thanks very much, and have a great day, everybody.